task, but I was unsure of what my objective was. A unique sense of calm enveloped me completely. Indeed, I was in a gestational state, but at the same time, my mind was filled with unclear and puzzling thoughts. I left the room promptly, aware of the strong rhythm of my heart in my chest. I gently placed my hands on my face to help regulate my breathing. What just happened? I spoke loudly to myself. What did he do before this? How could he have demonstrated such a minimal level of interest? Was I the only one who played a role in this situation? Please pause, my dear. I chose to be fully truthful with myself. However, the situation within me, what I experienced, impacted me more than I anticipated. Miles, in his early 20s, was now a grown adult. I, on the other hand, had spent decades navigating life's complexities. A woman who had encountered challenging moments in her professional journey. I had never encountered a situation like this before, but I clearly understood the feeling of embarrassment. In the corridor, I encountered Karen, my heart still racing. She gently ran her fingers through my hair, attempting to style it. When Miles arrived at the door, he mentioned Laura in passing, then seemed to focus on adjusting something uncomfortably. I sincerely apologize. He mentioned that he believed he had closed the door. Even with some uncertainty, his voice remains genuine. I gently lifted my head, gazing outward. That's not possible. In fact, it would be the individual who is deserving of the apologies. It would have been helpful to have addressed the situation before entering. I quickly shared my thoughts, although I wasn't entirely sure what else to include. I chose to remain quiet. However, it was not solely about the lack of sound. We had been sharing the same home for years, yet we had never seen each other in that light simultaneously before. We had not encountered this level of tension between us previously. I chose to head down the stairs promptly to begin preparing dinner. Even though my voice was shaking, I made an effort to remain calm. Miles chose to stay quiet. He simply gazed at me as though he were attempting to piece together thoughts in his mind. Before important moments happen between Miles and me, please subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, and enjoy this story until the end. I assure you that everything will be very enjoyable. We remained silent that night, without any exchange of words, without any shared glances, and not even a brief conversation. However, silence was a signal that suggested that circumstances would change moving forward. During dinner, we sat at the same table, but we couldn't make eye contact. We could only notice the sound made by the silvery fabric when we touched our plates. A conversation needed to be initiated to help ease the tension. We both knew. Could you please explain how? The night went by, followed by the following day, and then the day after that. Even though it may seem otherwise, there was truly nothing present. The silence only heightened the subtle tension between us. One afternoon, Miles took a seat beside me. In his eyes, I could see a hint of uncertainty, though his wish to resolve the situation was clear. Laura, following up on our previous discussion, I am in a state of pregnancy. I'm sorry, I did not wish for the situation to unfold in that manner. He shared his hope that this situation would not impact our relationship. He demonstrated clear sincerity, even though he was noticeably nervous while speaking. I chose to take a deep breath. Even though it was unexpected and unusual, it was important to seek peace. A smile appeared on his face as he embraced me and said, Miles, I can assure you that I have faced some awkward moments in my life. Then I chose to share some experiences with him. His facial expression softened and he let out a scream, his feeling of embarrassment shifting slightly. At that moment, the feeling of tension between us appeared to have heightened, though I truly comprehended it. Nothing significant occurred. Even though all signs pointed to progress, this conversation had entirely removed the obstacles between us, and I could clearly sense that change. They were preparing to proceed beyond what was anticipated. Miles offered a small smile and looked towards the table. He expressed that we are likely still in that process at this moment. A gentle smile appeared on his face as I turned to him. Could you please share your question? I asked with increasing curiosity in my tone of voice. In an instant, his face showed surprise as though he had come to understand that he had said something significant. As he bent the back of his neck, he paused for a moment. Nevertheless, it had already started. In that moment, he felt it was necessary to proceed. After taking a deep breath, he looked outwards and spoke softly. I have always been interested in you. You were simply unaware of it. I felt a sensation as if a gentle current flowed through my entire being. I felt a brief sensation of coldness. Could you please explain how? As her words affected me, I raised my voice. Even with his genuine expression, Miles proceeded, I didn't bring it up because I was uncertain about how it might impact you. However, I always kept it in my thoughts. It was something that he reserved just for me. There was a thought that lingered in my mind. All at once, I sensed my heart grow larger. I felt a sense of calmness that enveloped me. An unusual feeling suggested that something had changed. Miles's expressions extended beyond just a revelation. They had removed all the obstacles that kept us apart. I looked at his face. He also watched me. In that moment, we both recognized that it went beyond just a casual conversation. The air in my room had turned dry. All things had changed. From that moment forward, everything changed significantly. There was consistently a distance between us, a hidden barrier that separated us. However, at that moment, it felt as though that separation was no longer present. I began to understand Miles more deeply through our shared conversations, aiming to gain a clear understanding of his world. Brief instances, conversations that initially appeared to hold little significance. However, in reality, each of them merely served as the catalyst for the tension between us. Now we gather together and enjoy watching movies. In the past, we kept our distance, but now there seems to be an unexpected tension between us. It's an experience we both shared yet never acknowledged. Sometimes we sat together in silence, our conversations bridging a quiet distance that once existed between us. Or sharing moments of laughter. I felt a unique sensation within me. I made an effort to refrain from overthinking the situation. I experienced some difficulty sleeping at night. I continued to shift and adjust in bed. However, the discomfort I experienced prevented me from finding peace. One thought occupied my mind. The name you referred to is Miles. This situation could not continue. I felt it was important to establish a boundary. If I truly had feelings for myself, I needed to communicate them clearly and bring closure to the situation. I got out of bed with that mindset. My heart was racing as I walked towards Miles's room. The door was slightly ajar and the soft light within gently lit up the surroundings. Upon my entry, I noticed it. I was in a restful sleep. At that moment, I chose not to focus on him. He was concentrating on a different matter. An unexpected occurrence captured my attention. I was at a loss for words. For a moment, my body stayed still because of the intense cold. Witnessing that scene stirred a significant emotional response within me. It was unfortunate to have seen that. I knew I should have walked away, but I stood there, caught in uncertainty. I stayed in that place for a short time, attempting to comprehend my feelings. I then returned promptly. I felt an overwhelming sensation within me that was difficult to manage. Nevertheless, I decided to overlook it. Upon my return to the room and as I took a seat, I observed that everything had transformed. That night, I could not foresee the challenges that lay ahead. Despite my efforts, it seemed difficult for him to manage the increasing closeness with Miles. As the days passed, the borders grew increasingly repetitive and the atmosphere between us became more strained. I didn't realize when things became so complicated. It became evident that returning was no longer a practical choice. Miles then made his way back home in that manner. He appeared caught in a moment of emotional vulnerability. The sound of the door closing, the objects colliding, and the noises might have disturbed Tom's sleep. However, I understood how challenging it could be to wake Tom up. I got up quickly and went to look for Miles, not considering how messy my clothes were. Miles had a gentle, unfocused expression and a light-hearted smile graced his lips. "Laura, are you truly serious?" I whispered. Even though he grew weary of the liqueur, his expression stayed genuine. After taking a deep breath, I gently held his arm. "Miles, it's time to go. You can take a different route instead of going up the stairs that way. Please remain still." However, Miles's eyes stayed closed in front of me. With a gentle smile on his face, he looked in my direction, his expression unreadable. Do you have any thoughts? The lights are truly beautiful. Has it always been this way? Perhaps I simply didn't notice it before. I felt a moment of stillness. However, I rejoined right away. Miles, that's sufficient. Please come to the kitchen. I would like to make you a coffee. I walked towards the kitchen with him in a relaxed manner. I attempted to include a bit, but Miles' gaze and his words were creating a sense of internal turmoil within me. While Miles was preparing to make coffee, he sat down on his hip, but unexpectedly the cup slipped from his hands and spilled its hot contents onto the plate. Oh, Miles, it's important to be more cautious, I said as I rushed to address the situation. It doesn't seem helpful. However, Miles just offered a small smile. Has it always been this beautiful? I tidied up the kitchen promptly. It was not feasible to remain in this location for an extended period. As Tom rested on the stairs, it appeared unlikely that any further noise could be made because of Miles's situation. At that moment, we both recognized that it went beyond a casual conversation. The air in my room had turned dry. All things had changed. From that moment forward, everything underwent a significant change. There was a distance between us, an unseen boundary that maintained our separation. However, at that moment, it appeared that the separation was no longer present. I began to understand Miles more deeply through our shared conversations, seeking to gain a better understanding of his world. Short instances, conversations that initially appeared trivial. However, in reality, each of them merely served as the catalyst for the tension between us. We are now sitting together and enjoying watching movies. In the past, we kept our distance from one another, but now there seems to be an unexpected tension between us. There is an experience we both went through, yet we never acknowledged it. Sometimes we sat together in silence, our conversations bridging a quiet distance that once existed between us, or sharing moments of laughter. I felt a unique sensation within me. I attempted to steer clear of contemplating the issue in my thoughts. I experienced difficulty sleeping at night. I continued to shift and adjust in bed. However, the discomfort I experienced made it difficult for me to find peace. One thought occupied my mind. The name you referred to is Miles. This situation could not continue. I felt it was important to establish a boundary. If I truly had feelings for myself, I needed to communicate them clearly and bring closure to the situation. I got out of bed with that mindset. My heart was racing as I approached Miles's room to check on him. The door wasn't fully closed, and the soft light within gently brightened the room. Upon my entry, I noticed him. I was in a peaceful sleep. At that moment, I chose not to focus on him. He was concentrating on another matter. An unexpected occurrence captured my attention. I was at a loss for words. For a moment, my body stayed still because of the intense cold. Watching that scene stirred a strong reaction within me. It was unfortunate to have seen that. I ought to have come back right away. Nonetheless, I did not. I stayed in that place for a short time, reflecting on my feelings. I then returned promptly. I felt a strong emotion within me that was difficult to manage. Nevertheless, I decided to overlook it. Upon returning to my room, I observed that everything was different. That night, I could not foresee the challenges that lay ahead. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't help but notice Miles's increasing closeness. As the days went by, the borders became increasingly repetitive, and the atmosphere between us grew more strained. I didn't realize when things started to become so complex. I understood that returning was no longer a feasible choice. Miles then made his way back to his home. He appeared caught in a moment of emotional vulnerability. The sound of the door closing, the objects colliding, and the noise might have disturbed Tom's sleep. However, I understood how challenging it could be to wake Tom up. I got up promptly and went to search for Miles, not considering the state of my clothes. Miles had a gentle, unfocused expression, and a cheerful smile graced his lips. "Laura, are you truly serious?" I whispered. Even though he was growing weary of the alcohol, his expression stayed genuine. After taking a deep breath, I gently held his arm. "Miles, it's time to leave. You don't need to go up the stairs that way. It's best to stay still." However, Miles's eyes remained closed in front of me. With a gentle smile on his face, he looked in my direction, his expression unreadable. Do you have an idea? The lights are truly beautiful. Has it always been like this? Perhaps I just didn't notice before. I felt a brief moment of stillness. However, I rejoined right away. Miles, it's enough. Please come closer to the kitchen. I'll prepare a cup of coffee for you. I walked to the kitchen with him in a calm manner. I attempted to engage with myself a bit, but Miles's gaze and his words were creating a sense of internal turmoil within me. While Miles was getting ready to make coffee, he settled down on his lap, but suddenly the glass slipped from his hands and spilled its hot contents onto the plate. Oh, Miles. Please be more careful, I said as I rushed to address the situation. It's not effective. However, Miles simply smiled slightly. Has it always been this beautiful? I tidied up the kitchen promptly. It was not feasible to remain in this location for an extended period. As Tom sat quietly on the stairs, it was not possible to make any extra noise because of Miles's situation. He was unable to help me, so I chose to close my eyes. As I held the leaves in my hands, I felt a slight unease ripple through me. I gently placed my hands over my mouth to ensure I remained quiet. Miles was deeply in love and felt unconcerned about anything else. This truly had a significant effect on me. The atmosphere of the event combined with a sense of calm and a delightful anticipation of something wonderful. Miles looked tired, as though the day had drained his energy. I conveyed to Miles the importance of the situation by observing his reddish color. Miles indicated his agreement by saying, "It's right." Even after expressing his agreement with "it's right," he continued to move in the same direction, without stopping, increasingly so. Another wave of tension passed through me, and my focus shifted entirely to that moment. I wasn't even the primary one. With a deep breath, I said, "Let's be honest with each other about everything, Miles. You can decide what you'd like." I must have felt a connection to Miles as he walked away. He stepped away, and something about it felt overwhelming. I gently placed Miles in his bed and tucked him in securely. I stepped away from the doorway and let him rest. I would like to have a calm and very soothing shower experience. I was uncertain about what would happen next. What was the situation that had arisen? While I was taking a moment to reflect in the bathroom, I felt a sense of unease and nervousness. However, when I left, I observed that my thoughts were becoming clearer. I found it interesting that I was genuinely feeling a sense of calm. I didn't experience any anger towards myself, as my body was as calm as my mind at that moment. I quietly changed my clothes, I went to my bed and drifted into a peaceful sleep, as if everything was just fine. However, it was an intense emotional moment, confusing and difficult to process. However, things became a bit more complex. Could you please clarify what this is? This situation was unlikely to stay straightforward. The narrative continued beyond this moment. I couldn't accomplish it. There were events of significant importance, more surprising situations, and in the end, Tom was ready to share everything. The story is still unfolding. Please remember to follow and subscribe to stay updated on what's coming next. Please remember to enable notifications and leave a comment. I invite you to move ahead in these stories. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for your attention. As you reach this point,